Hi, this is Marilyn, and this is a bonus episode, which is called Relationships, which was an episode I recorded back in season one. And I thought it was really important to hear this message because I've already reshared my mother myself. So that is a good episode to look at and listen to during the week of Mother's Day here in the UK. However, my the relationships podcast that I'm reposting is really good because the points I make in this episode relate to your own relationship with self. And I can't stress this enough, especially during this time, how we always want to please and people please people around us, including our mothers. Without taking care of ourselves, and it leaves us being resentful and bitter. And I just feel like it's really important for us to home in on how we love on ourselves and how we mother ourselves. And so I recorded this like 5, 6 years ago, but I feel like the message in terms of self-love and connecting with others is really important at this time. And I will be back with some, resuming the other episodes. I've been on a 2 week break since my plant medicine journey, and I just want to post something when I've got something really good to post. And I keep promising I'm going to post something new in the last 2 weeks. But obviously, things are still processing within me. So I want you to just enjoy this episode and let me know how you feel that it went. And I will see you next week. Bye for now. Hi, this is Marilyn Fontaine, and this is the podcast of MJ Fontaine. Web address www.mjfontaine.co.uk. And this is episode 6 of our weekly podcast. And I'd just like to say last week we had a really brilliant feedback from listeners who really enjoyed the podcast. And if you haven't listened to that podcast, it's just in the list below on SoundCloud. I will also post a link to the website and the newsletter as well. Okay, so for those of you who hadn't listened to last week's podcast, I covered the grief process and creativity and being transparent. And continuing in that vein, today I'm going to cover love and relationships, which is really interesting because I very rarely speak about my love and relationship unless it's in a poem, in a blog somewhere. I just feel like I have to keep that part of my life quite private. In another aspect, I think that it's really important to identify where we are after we come out of relationships, and and in between relationships, what we actually want to manifest in our lives. For me, right now, I'm not in a relationship, and I really want to be in a space where I'm understanding me even more, the person I've become, to really enjoy and to really explore the depths of who I am in a really clear and authentic, honest way. Because in the past, I've taken time out in between relationships to heal myself. But it's always been from a place of I'm really wounded. I really need to, bring myself back together, which is what we tend to do anyway. And whilst I'm in that mode of bringing myself back together, I go into a relationship. And then the whole cycle of pattern happens again where because I'm not synthesizing or consolidating all those parts of myself which have been fragmented, I tend to disperse my essence again. And therein lies the problem. So the same dynamic for me keeps coming up. We can say we choose a type of partner, we go for a similar type of partner, but I actually feel that when you do not, and it's not about I'm being whole so I can choose a partner, but I actually believe if you're not really taking the time to be conscious with yourself, when you meet somebody, you are going into a situation unconsciously or semi-conscious, I would say, because you've not really spent that time being conscious of yourself. So, being so that can look like, being in loads of different places, trying to find yourself, instead of just being still and being, looking at situations when they come up, because the reality is the world is reflecting to you what your core beliefs and expectations are. So whenever you find yourself in a challenging situation, it's a huge part. I wouldn't say every single thing you created is because of your faults, although we live in a mental universe. I think you co-create situations, or there's a thing called divine timing, where you think a thought and a situation that is looking to lands into your space. If you're going to go into much more deeper schools of thought like quantum physics and stuff like that. But so, and the reason why I've gone down that confusing route is because I think that we can get so hung up on, well, you've caused this, you've caused that, you've caused this, and it doesn't help when you really experience really awful situations. Try telling that to a person that gets severely abused or attacked or beaten up. It's not going to help. So it's looking at what patterns am I reinforcing within myself subconsciously that I can move forward from. And I actually think when you take time to consciously be with yourself, that's when you can consciously go into a relationship and stand more in your power and be able to walk away if that situation does not suit you. Or be able to, enjoy the ride or go through the challenges that a relationship will bring. I spoke to a couple of acquaintances who are in really healing, very conscious relationships, and I spoke about the space they was in between their relationship, and they actually said to me that they was consciously celibate. So they're consciously not engaging in any relationship with anybody on any level because they were really taking time with their self. And both of them had a situation where they attracted somebody who they thought was their soulmate, and wasn't really, but they still was able to learn and to stand in their power and move through that situation and realize that, this person wants different things to what I want, and still be gracious about it. And shortly after that, that's when they met their twin soul or soulmate, whatever definition we want to put on that. And so for me, it feels very healthy because they're both in a place where they're no longer blaming a partner or no longer feeling a lot of resentment. And I think that the resentment and the blame and anger, they all have their place, but eventually you have to move forward. So for me, I always believe that love is really, really important for us to function as humans. To be in love, for the inspiration, being an artist, being in love or being in the love energy, regardless of whether there's a person involved or not, is really important to me. And I find when I'm not engaging in that place, I'm going away from love, that my life becomes very stagnant. the miracles that I attract, they're still there, but they feel quite dry and arid. I don't look as juicy and, vibrant. My thoughts can get twisted, and therefore that's when I have to pull it in and say, actually, this is not being loving to myself. So Marilyn, this is not being loving. And there's times when you just feel what you feel because you've been through the mill, you've been through so much, you feel that there's been an injustice in your life, or you feel annoyed, you feel hurt, betrayed, you feel angry, you feel heartbroken, you feel misunderstood, or somebody's accused you of breaking their heart and you feel that it's unfair. All these feelings come within, the ending of a relationship. And again, it's a concerted effort, and that's where a spiritual practice is really important, because the only place you can go is inside. And what brings us to that place so successfully is a great amount of pain or boredom or feeling really, really stagnant. And normally that place of stagnation, that place of feeling bored, angry, upset, is actually the place before a major change happens. But again, it's loving yourself through it. So, and it's really interesting because when I do look at people that are consciously taking time out, they're dating themselves, they're going on a retreat, they're looking after themselves, they're getting support from a coach or a therapist or a massage therapist, they're really looking after all aspects of their body. That's when they become more attracted to everybody and everything, because they're taking time out. It's that beautiful place. And I see that with my clients, when they're really in a place where they're loving themselves, they almost become jealous of their space. And this is something that happens where you start to get, within the midst of everything, you start to get these feelings of just happiness that just come spontaneously. They're not related to having a lot of money, although that helps. They're not related to having someone give us the gaze, which I'm going to cover in a minute. They're actually related to just being able to be in that moment, be totally accountable for self, and just feeling I'm okay in this space. And I always kind of liken that moment of just total joy, just for that, just for a second. If you can remember that film, Sleeping with the Enemy, and Julia Roberts is in an abusive relationship and she flees from this man, and then she got this beautiful little house with a new identity, and she's in her home, and she's just, at first she's a bit nervous because she thinks she's still living with this guy, and then there's a part where is just sitting in her home and she's just happy. She hasn't got much, but she's happy. And that kind of really, that moment, I get I hear clients say, I was just in my home, I made some nice food, I just looked out the window and I felt really good. Or I was meditating, I sat with some crystals, I put on some lovely music, lit some incense, and Marilyn, I felt really just in a beautiful space. And when I see people like that and they're not in a relationship, I always know there's a matter of time before they attract someone into their life, because they're in that really beautiful space in between. And it's really interesting because, again, it's that place where you are in this space. So the next lot of tools we all need, is to be able to say, this person is coming towards me. There are some warning signs, or there's some things I don't like. I'm actually going to step back. And no matter how much I like it, it's still not quite what I want. So I'm actually not going to make a decision. And that's the most crucial moment, because that's like the test that comes. And another example I have is when I had a job and it just did not feel right. If it was being offered to me, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we want you to be a permanent member of staff. And I'm like, no, I'm freelance, I'm a trainer, I'm not doing it. And I sat back. Within 2 months, that company had got rid of a few staff members. So I would have just taken that for full security, and it would have ended up back square one saying, I told you so, so it really reinforced my feeling, and I've been in situations where people have been interested in me and it's just not felt right. And so somebody will say, well, you're being too fussy or you're being too choosy. I think when we are looking after self, our radar is in a neutral, balanced position. It's the voices we hear from other people or the lack of confidence that tells us you must choose now, where we need to just continuously sit and just wait for the situation to reveal itself more, because you will know. You will know, because you're coming from a place of center. You're not coming from a place where you're running away from one relationship or you're running away from being lonely. When you're in that moment of clarity or in that moment of semi-peace, or you're anchored, you're grounded, you're in the moment, you're feeling really good, you're looking good. And the tests and, the carrots that's dangling and all those things are coming towards you. You just have to keep breathing through it like you're giving birth, because that's at the moment when your universe is showing you and is testing you. It's testing, do you have the resolve? Are you making the right choices? And me, being at this age that I am, realizing the choices when I'm looking back, I'm playing the screen. And I'm not even talking about the relationship, the last relationship I had, but relationship back 10, 15 years where I knew there was something about that person. I shouldn't have done it, but I was just like, well, you know what? Let me just do it because. Or maybe I better. No, your choice has really got to be key. Now, if you're a person and you've not had much experiences and you just want to get out there, you want to date, then that's fine. But I think if you're really a person on purpose and you cannot afford to be around anybody people are not going to do anything to us, but you're not going to loosen your boundaries, and you do not have the strength to take on such a complex situation, then don't do it. Because you will know the people that you have to move mountains to work with, and you'll know the people to leave alone when you go through so many situations, because you have a ready-made built-in history, signaling, engine, machine, sensor, beam in your body called experience. And whether you attract a certain type, that is all work that you have to do within. You cannot just go to different places and go and select these people. So instead of going to a club, you're going to the library. Instead of going to the library, you're going to a lecture. It does not matter. It will still be the same person when you scratch the surface, or they will turn into that person. So it's really important that the work, healing, is done within the spirit. You're doing it within your body. Some really good suggestions: Queen Afua Sacred Woman, going through the gateways, working with a coach, joining a moon circle. The moon circle is really good because it gives you your time, taking time out in nature. That's really cliche, but it's part of it. Going out, taking yourself out, going to museums, going to art shows, and going by yourself sometimes, so you can really absorb the work in exhibitions, taking a day out to the British Library just to learn about different books, because what these things do, they spark an interest from you, which is different. Cooking is a really beautiful self-nourishing pursuit, which I spoke about before. Um, so all these kinds of things are really good to help. So for me, the most important thing is that going into another relationship, that I meet that person with really clear boundaries, but with an open heart. And I cannot 100% blame anybody that's come into my life, because we played a part together. It was a role. And I do believe that people come into your life for a reason, and you learn so much stuff. So we can be hating and we can be cursing, but the beautiful spirits that has graced my path, some of them not so beautiful, but a great deal of them have been. I've not felt it at the time, but they've informed my creativity in a way that I would never have had if I wasn't in a loving relationship with them. Even, the people that weren't really serious and they were just friends, or, came into my life that way, they've informed me. I love polarity. I love being amongst male company as I do female. So for me, it feeds me, which I'll go on to the gays, because we've got about 19 minutes left. Not 90 minutes, got about 10 minutes left. And I really think it's important, not for validation, but for part of the feeding of the feminine energy. The dance it's part of the tantric dance that people have when they embark on a spiritual relationship. It's about the gaze. It's being able to really be present, really see your partner and look upon your partner with loving eyes. And it's not giving your partner promises, but it's that whole thing about, Nancy Friday writes about it, about the male gaze, how, your person of the opposite sex just gazes upon you. So it's not in a lascivious way or an invasive way, but, the person that you're intimate with gives you that gaze, which makes you feel really important, or enhances your self-importance already. There's a really good book, How to Have an Adult Relationship, by David Ricoh, and he talks about the 5 A's, and attention is one of them. And I think that's really important, that you have that attention, you have that gaze from your partner. Things can change as you get older, but one thing that's really evident in a lot of really lovely, loving long-term relationships is that gaze. It's really being able to see your partner and appreciating them for who they are, regardless of how they're making you feel and what you're going through with them. And, relationships can have fluctuations, and you can go through a stage where you dislike that person. You don't even want to look at them. But I still feel at the beginning, it's nature's way of helping us bond, with some discernment, is to be able to experience that. To be in a relationship and not to be seen can be really heartbreaking for some people. And I really think it's important that we as women, and men, if you're listening to this, that we understand how important the art of attention, appreciation, acceptance is really, really important in bonding and moving forward in such a challenging world. So, next week I'll talk about boundaries, because we have run out of time. I was going to cover boundaries, but I actually don't want to be spending so much time on these topics, because the podcast can go on and on and on and on. I think as time progresses, then I can make the podcast a lot longer, but at the moment it feels really good. So let me know what you think about this, about relationship, times that you need to take, being in a relationship, because this is more about how we go into a relationship, how we maintain healthy boundaries, and the power dynamics in relationships always shifts. Always shift, because we're learning and growing, we're recovering, we're healing, we're doing all these kinds of things. But I'm getting, when I speak to women, and of my own experience, is I want to go in. I want to go in as myself and stand fully in my power as myself, without worrying that I'm going to intimidate somebody or make them feel smaller, So I want to go in, I want to surrender to my partner, but I want to surrender exactly as I am. I don't want to change anything about myself, but I'm ready to compromise and to work with them so we can reach a common goal. But I don't want to hand over my power and say, here you go, to be something totally different. It is about accepting yourself exactly as you are, and then attracting that person that will accept you and will not demand you to change, or will not try to control you. Because when you meet somebody who's trying to control you, they have a very, I would say, a lack of personal power, and that's why they're trying to control you. So it's being able to identify how much self-worth and self-esteem does this person have around me, because then you'll know the level, how much they'll try to control you. We only try to control when we are really afraid or not sure about our power. So, let me know what you think about this podcast. This is Marilyn Fontaine signing off. If you want to join my newsletter, you can go onto my site, mjfontaine.co.uk. The address is at the end of this podcast, or you can check out my Instagram or my Facebook. If you have any questions, please contact me, send me a private message, or email at mjfontaine.co.uk, info@mjfontaine.co.uk. If there's any topics you want me to cover, or you want to know more information about this particular topic, or you'd like some support to kind of find yourself, just drop me a line and see what we can do. Okay, 25 minutes past. Until next week, bye-bye. You want to be part of an incubator of some amazing creative women, then you need to join the Highly Capable Creative one-to-one program with me. To join, you can just contact me at www.mjfontaine.co.uk and book a sales call with me to join this amazing 6-month program where we get to work on your creative business. We also get to work clearing your blocks and also bringing that confidence up to 100 so you can stand in your agency and live your best life.